1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got a quorum. The Transportation and Telecommunications hearing will come to order. My name is Mike Moser. I'm chair of the committee, and with me is our clerk, Connie Thomas, and our legal counsel, Gus Shoemaker. We have green testifier sheets on the table near the entrance to the room. If you plan to testify, please complete it and hand it to the clerk. I don't believe we have pages today. Your testimony will be started with you giving us your name, spelling your first and last name for the record. How many people would like to testify other than Director Haggerty? Any other testifiers? Okay. I would say if there are, we'll allow 5 minutes because it doesn't look like that everybody's going to testify. Please turn off your cell phones or put them on vibrate. And we'll start with introductions of the senators, starting with Senator Bozen.
I'm Carolyn Bozen from District 25, which is Southeast Lincoln, Lancaster County.
Tom Brandt, District 32, Fillmore Thayer, Jefferson, Salina, and Southwestern Lancaster counties.
Barry DeKay, representing District 40, which includes Holt, Knox, Cedar, Antelope, northern part of Pierce, and northern part of Dixon counties.
Bruce Bossman, District 23, Saunders Butler, Colfax County.
All right, thank you. First order of business is a report from the Broadband office. Please commence.
Committee members, Chair, thanks for having me here to testify today on behalf of the Nebraska Broadband Office and the 2024 annual report. Timing-wise, it encompasses a little bit of 23 as well, but our annual report regarding broadband in the state of Nebraska. First, I'd like to focus on a few noteworthy successes worth emphasizing. Firstly, although the overall number of broadband serviceable living locations in Nebraska has increased since the last report, I'm pleased to report that the number of unserved and underserved locations have decreased, underserved by approximately 60% and unserved by approximately 75%. The primary driver behind this significant reduction in our unserved and underserved living locations is private investment within the state, other state programs, ongoing state programs, as well as other federal programs that have come into the state. With these numbers in mind, I affirm again my confidence in our ability to not only get broadband access to all unserved Nebraskans, but all underserved Nebraskans. Furthermore, my office continues to make sure that every voice in Nebraska is heard and considered in this transformational endeavor. Our outreach team has recently completed what we called statewide circuit, where we visited 12 communities expected to be the most impacted by BEAD funding to discuss permitting readiness. We engaged and met with over 50 community representatives, including local power districts, county and city officials, and economic leaders. This year, we have also held 189 other unique outreach engagements for a total of 201 engagements. This is nearly double our number of engagements in 2023. We look forward to continuing our nation-leading outreach efforts in this coming year as well. In advocacy matters, Nebraska Broadband Office has succeeded in advancing Nebraska's broadband interests multiple times through extensive dialogues with our federal agency partners and in concert with our support from our federal delegations. Specifically, the approval of Nebraska's initial proposal, Volume 2, by NTA was facilitated through these dialogues. Similarly, NBO's concern that the requirement of having a low-cost broadband service option amounted to rate regulation was remedied with a solution crafted through this close intergovernmental collaboration. My office is grateful to our federal partners who we work closely with in achieving these wins for Nebraska. The Nebraska Broadband Office also recently received its notice of award for the State Digital Equity Capacity Grant Program from NTIA, with an award totaling roughly $6.5 million and potentially additional funding rounds in the future. NBO can initiate its efforts to improve the technology skills of Nebraskans and increase the use of telehealth technologies in Nebraska, among other efforts. This complements not only the BEAD program, but other broadband deployment efforts, as well as in fully leveraging the infrastructure being deployed to realize great benefits for all Nebraskans. Lastly, I would like to take a second and highlight recent successes we've had specifically with Nebraska's BEAD program. As I mentioned earlier, we recently posted our approved initial proposal, Volume 2, to our website. We have also been assured by NTIA that we are very close to having our final location inventory approved. These both represent significant milestones for Nebraska BEAD. However, my office is eager to open our subgrantee application process and begin some grantee selection as we look to marking even more significant milestones in the coming months. Thanks for your time, and I'll take any questions.
All right, thank you. Questions from the panel? Senator DK.
Thank you for being here, Director Haggerty. When we talk about underserved, does that mean sporadic service, or does that mean decreased speed, or all of the above? Or?
Yeah, so Senator, those are actually defined terms federally. So they actually refer more to the speed available to an individual or a living unit. So the way it's defined is unserved is any individual or any location that doesn't have access to at least 25 megabits down and 3 megabits up. And underserved is anything above 25 and 3, but less than 100 megabits down and 20 megabits up.
And if we get to the point where we're going through with broadband throughout the whole state, we get out in a rural sector where farms, ranches are 10, 15 miles apart out in the central western part of the state. If we go to a satellite to be able to reach those clients, how do we do that and keep them from being underserved when there might be weather elements involved in that?
Senator, maybe some context around that. The BEAD program itself prescribes how we walk through technology deployment. So we first have to get to everywhere we can with fiber. When that becomes exhausted because of funding or just the cost of getting the service itself, we can move on to alternate technologies, which is licensed fixed wireless, DSL or copper, or coax. If we exhaust those efforts, we can then move to the third tier of technologies, which includes low orbit satellites and unlicensed fixed wireless. So we're going to get to a large patch just based on the prescription, get to a large portion of the state with fiber initially and others. If we do have, and I suspect we'll have a small percentage of locations that set up well for low orbit satellite, we're already working with those satellite companies. They'll bid just as any other applicant would on those locations and ultimately potentially be awarded those locations. The way they've described to me now, and Senator, to be fair to them, they've changed their approach to this several times, but they're looking at submitting applications on a per location bid. So they'll say, I'll cover these 27 locations at $100 a piece. They'll request then $2,700. I think it'll be more than that, Senator, quite frankly, but make the math simple.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Senator Bosselman.
Thank you, Chairman Mosher. I've been reading a little bit about on the change of administration at the national level. What can you provide us? Any new insight as to what you expect in funding, what you expect in support? There's discussion out there says that, well, one, we don't know, but we may see a reduction on several different areas in this program. Are you hearing anything? What can you share with us on that?
Senator, I get the question a lot, particularly over the last couple of weeks, but I don't, I guess the disclaimer up front would be I don't have any insights that you all don't. I've likely read the same articles, maybe had some conversations, but they were all hypotheticals. I think the positive thing I can say is Nebraska has crossed the threshold. We have crossed the threshold in which the money is committed to the state. So any clawback could happen. Of course, Congress can jump through a lot of hoops, but it would take a lot of hoops to be jumped through to get our money, to get the money back from us. So I can't say that in confidence. In regards to anything else, it would be speculation. I mean, I guess to build on the speculation, what I'm hearing most about is the technology neutral approach, whereas I just walked through our prescribed approach to deploying technologies where that may become more diluted and we may see us being able to access the other types of technologies. But
so in what you provided us, you would decrease of 60% and decrease of 75%. What are those numbers? Is it 5,000, 500 locations? So in other words, percentage is one thing, but how many physical locations does that represent?
So I'll walk you through the scenario I kind of share with folks. When I was appointed the position last July of 2023, I walked into the office and we had 111,000 or a little over 111,000 unserved and underserved locations. The final inventory I spoke of in my testimony is going to come out just under 30,000 unserved and underserved locations. So you say that, that's a delta of 80,000 locations. What I make clear in each of those cases, though, is we actually today have somewhere in the neighborhood of 72,000 locations in total that are unserved or underserved. 40,000 of those locations are behind an enforceable commitment. So you may have a constituent or a neighbor that says, well, I don't have it, but I'm showing which I have it. That is likely means that they have an enforceable commitment behind it, which my funding can't be directed towards.
So the identifying the unserved and underserved, and when there's challenges made, how does that apply to the individual location, home, ranch, whatever it is? How does that, because if people don't know to challenge, how is it that we're assured that the numbers we're talking about are actual rather than what we hope is out there because of what we were able to test or that by whatever entity it was?
Yeah.
You understand what I'm getting at?
Maybe start with the bad news. I don't think we're going to be perfect. I'll put that out there, but I think we're going to be really close. And it was the process in which we approached is that you all remember, as I sat before you last year at this time, we were just embarking upon our challenge process. We did statewide tour encouraging folks to engage with it, to participate in the challenge process. We did statewide radio and marketing to get folks to engage. We ultimately ended up looking at 90,000 locations in Nebraska being challenged. Some of that was our process to, as we polled, as one was identified as a challenge, we asked providers to commit or confirm for us that those around them were also provided service. So I think we're really close. The other NTIA's process for then, I guess, validating or approving those challenges, Senator, has been extremely robust. I think we're in our 6th round of curing with them around our numbers. And in each of those cases, we each get a little bit better. I think yesterday morning, we submitted our final 11 individual addresses to be approved by NTIA. So it's been an extremely, I guess, intricate approach to it. And again, I'll come back to what I started with. I don't think we're perfect, but I think we're really close.
Yeah, I think what Senator Kay was talking about, I think it's my last comment or question is when we get into Western Nebraska, Central Nebraska, there's great distance between locations.
Mm-hmm.
This committee has dealt with in the past with homes with telephones not working, where they've had to have satellite phones in order for that to work. My concern is when it's cloudy out, when it storms out, satellites, fixed wireless, doesn't work.
Yeah.
My concern is that we don't build to those locations first and then back out to our other locations where we have multiple people in one section, maybe rather than a person that's 14, 15 miles away. Could you speak to that? I mean, I don't think satellite's going to do it because what I'm reading on satellite, it's great until they start adding commercial customers and other customers onto it. And now that latency, and not only latency, but then those, your up and down loads, your speeds really start to go down. And I'm concerned that we're going to leave people, I'm hoping that we don't leave people out in those parts of the state that really need to have that connectivity and really want it in order to do their business, be able to function.
Yeah, Senator, so maybe a couple of things. I've seen mock-ups or we've modeled our defined project areas, so I have a good idea of where they are and what they cost based on our cost modeling. We use the same entity that the FCC and NTIA use for the cost modeling. And you're absolutely right. Our most expensive defined project areas are in the Western Panhandle, and that is the density, quite frankly. In general, I'll share because I'm excited about it, and I spoke with a number of providers earlier today, and hopefully have gotten them very excited about it. In general, our state sets up really well for participation in the program. As I'm sure you've all been hearing, NTIA and Congress didn't make this an easy program to engage with. So one of my biggest concerns when I accepted the appointment was we've got to get those ISPs in the state to participate. Without them, we've got nothing. It all goes to satellite. And in looking at our cost modeling associated with these defined project areas, there's some real incentive in there to participate and for our local Nebraska companies to grow, quite frankly. Follow up to your question around satellite, having become an eligible participant in terms of technology, they have to live up to the same quality, same speed, same everything that a wireline app would have to. I haven't worked as much. The company I've worked with the most has been SpaceX or Starlink, and they've got a really robust program to ensure they can certify with the FCC the speeds the customers are receiving, the latency that customers receiving, and any frequency in terms of overtime consistency in that speeds they're receiving. So I think that they're going to be held to some of the same expectations. So not that, it's a technology that's in the bottom tier. I think they're going to have to live up to some pretty high expectations to.
Sure. My concern is I've mentioned this before. We've talked about this before. Where we live, we've had a satellite, we've had fixed wireless, we've had the others. Problem comes into is when there's a storm coming.
Yeah.
And I don't have connectivity. And that bothers me a lot because if there's a tornado coming in my area, I have no connectivity. I don't know what's happening.
Right.
And when I have fiber, and then I don't lose it.
Right.
But these others I do, and it's really a safety issue for me where I'm at. Is one of my main concerns to be able to have that connectivity because you do lose it in certain times when you have bad weather.
Yeah.
And that's a time we desperately need it. So.
Yeah, I think Senator, what I would say is that I think it's going to be a really small percentage that goes to satellite in Nebraska. But to be fair, we've got a high number of locations that are under $1,000 a passing. And maybe just to put that into perspective, when I was in the private sector, we always kind of approach that $5,000 per passing as the break even. Anything over 5,000, you're losing money. Anything under, your potential to make money. And so we've got all based on our modeling right now. We've only got 14 counties in the entire state of Nebraska that exceed that $5,000 when you apply the 75% subsidy, which makes me really excited that. But to get to your point, there are 14 counties that exceed that, and we range from $698 a passing on average to $53,000 a passing on average. And so I don't, it's likely that $53,000 passing is probably going to fall down into the lower tiers of technology.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just
Senator DK.
quick follow-up.
Sure,
Thank you again. So like are you able to run fiber throughout the state along the main arteries like Highway 20, 91, Highway 2 of them, and then in the gaps in between those highways, patch in with like Starlink or something to get service so that you could get as many people that are living in these communities along those highways with fiber and high-speed internet as you can? And how is that what you're working toward, or is that even a realistic goal?
Yes, Senator. So the mandate in accepting this money, which we have, we're obligated to provide service to every unserved location in Nebraska. And that's the inventory that we're currently having approved by NTIA. So we can't pass somebody and say, it's too expensive, we're not going to get to them. We're obligated to get to them through this funding. We in Nebraska, based on the cost model, I believe we can not only meet the mandate of unserved, that we've also got the funding to provide service to get to all the underserved locations in Nebraska. Now, whether or not all of those are fiber or not is yet to be seen. I think a high percentage of them will be. But yes, everybody will have access to it when we're done.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Brandt.
Thank you, Chairman Moser. Thank you, Director, for appearing today. You said 40,000 locations are behind an enforceable commitment. Does that mean I don't have broadband, but it's coming because the provider hasn't trenched it there yet?
It does.
Okay.
Senator, it does. It's primarily based on the establishment of a funding commitment. So, for example, the Nebraska Broadband Bridge Program, if there's an award that's been granted to an internet service provider, they just have not been able to break ground on that grant yet. That's considered an enforceable commitment based on the funding that's been promised.
Okay. We received $408 million in federal money, right?
405.
405.
Yep.
How much will it take to finish the job? How much more funding will it take in your opinion, estimate, past that 405 to get everybody hooked up?
We're funded with that 405 million to get to those that are unserved and underserved right now. So theoretically, Senator, that means the other side of that is served. We can get, with the 405 million, we can get to all of our unserved and underserved. Now I'm saying this pre-application, but based on our cost analysis in the office
Okay, so you're saying that'll do 100% of the locations in Nebraska?
of what's left. Yep.
Okay. I went to a reception last night for the Nebraska Telecom Association. I don't know if you attended or not.
I was there this morning.
Okay. And a lot of still small independent phone companies and cooperatives in the state. I asked about the BEAD program. Not a lot of enthusiasm. It's very hard to apply for. There's too much paperwork. It's awkward. These are the comments that I got. Are you receiving that same cold shoulder from some of these smaller companies that are in areas that need to be developed?
Senator, I wouldn't say cold shoulder. I spent a lot of time with them. I knew, as I said earlier, one of my priorities was ensuring that we were good partners. We had to do our part in order for them to do their part. So part of our office pillars is, transparency, accessibility, and being easy to work with. And we've tried to be really easy to work with, to not de-incent providers from engaging. But they're absolutely right, and I agree with them. It's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of follow-up reporting requirements. It's a lot. You all may have seen an article that came out in the last couple of days from the MTA, which is Minnesota's Telecom Association, and he's essentially said none of his providers are going to participate in it. So the concern is real. I was with the NTA this morning. I showed them the maps at a county level and the estimated cost per passing of those maps. And I think the way we've done it, we won't do it by county, but the way we've done it, it really incents folks to jump in. I think they realize they don't have they're probably another time in their company's history or future where there'll be a 75% subsidy to build out a network like this. So I have fleets of real confidence that our in-state folks are going to step up. Louisiana just recently completed their round of subgrantee selection, and they had 80% of their funding went to in-state companies. And I'm hopeful that we'll see the same, Senator, but they're not wrong in what they shared with you.
So last question. I get this from a lot of constituents, and this is just a broad question. They're paying for 100 by 20. Half the time, they're lucky if they get 50 by 10. Should there be a penalty in Nebraska statute that said these companies need to reimburse consumers if they're not getting what they were sold?
Senator, I think, consumer protection is really important. And having spent, as you all know, the 30 years in the business and being on the other side of that as a provider, there are a lot of reasons that happen. So I'd hate to encourage painting a broad brush across that. I'll just from my experience on the private side, very few times, and I won't say it never happened, but a smaller percentage of the time was it on the network provider side and more so on the consumer side, whether it had been inside wiring, whether it been the computer that you're using, so it's difficult to encourage or say yes to consumer protections. Absolutely 1,000% important. We all need to get what we're paying for, but it gets to be pretty intricate when you try to figure out whose side of the demarcation point that's on.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Senator Bosley.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. I want to follow up on some of the questions that Senator Brandt asked about the enforceable commitments. My recollection was that we put a cap on how long those enforceable commitments can go. Do you recall what that cap was?
Well, it's going to vary because I want to say, Senator Bosley, there's 14 different programs operating within the broadband space in Nebraska. And I think every one of them has a little bit different timeline in terms of build. I believe the Nebraska bridge is 18 months. I think capital funding might have been 18 months. There's other programs such as EACAM that are currently associated with the timing of the agreement with the federal government, but there's, I think, 4 years in that one. And I'm not confident I have all those right, Senator, but they're all a little bit unique.
And so their time starts on when they got their contracts. So those 40,000 locations, theoretically, by the end of February next year, should be substantially less.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
In fact, I assume the numbers I shared with you are from June, which is obviously high time during construction season. So I suspect we'll see those numbers even today have dropped
Okay.
significantly.
Okay. So those are based on June 2024.
Yeah, the numbers I shared.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Senator Bossman.
Thank you, Chairman Moser. I'll follow up on both of their questions. So you said there is a large number of programs
I think
on
14,
broadband
if
state.
I'm
So
not mistaken.
RDOF is one of them, some others. I think we've talked about this before, what happens or what do you see is going to happen? Does it affect the BEAD program with what you're doing when we have a provider that is not able to complete the work, fulfill the contract? In other words, they've got a contract to build this area. For whatever reason, they don't do it. They've got a timeline. At the end of that timeline, 2-3 years from now, they don't do it. Now what?
Well, Senator, for as many of those programs in their unique timelines, there's penalty components of their programs. I can speak to ours pretty clearly. We will have the opportunity to claw back. We will have the opportunity to redistribute. We are going to, and again, are required primarily through federal law, have an extremely robust organizational application. So we'll be able to assess the risk of any of those individuals of a default or the ability to financially and managerially or technically be able to carry out what they committed to doing. We're also going to monitor based on that risk score. You'll get a lot of monitoring or a smaller amount of monitoring, but we'll stay pretty close to this.
You're going to do a reimbursement over certain time periods, correct?
There'll
My
be-
understanding.
I'm sorry, Senator, correct. There'll
So
be-
then you within your program, at least you'd have to know if someone's struggling.
Yes.
So that's good.
And just to, because I think I get questions on that a lot, we'll do a quarterly reimbursement based on actual cost.
The last question I have for you is, Senator Brand asked a question, I probably missed it. On those who are applying for this program now, for these applications, what percentage are, I'll call them out-of-state companies, or big companies, and what percentage of those, if you could tell me, are Nebraska companies? And if you can share that, if you have an idea, a ballpark on that, is it 50%? Is it 80%? Is it just the big companies coming in and applying for these, and our smaller companies, our local providers don't because of the paperwork and the tracking and that type of thing?
So Senator, I don't know that yet. We haven't opened our application window. From all the conversations I have literally daily with providers, I have less confidence that our larger traditional ILEC providers are going to participate. If that's it, I believe I haven't gotten maybe a cold shoulder, but haven't gotten necessarily a real positive response from some of our larger cable providers either. One of the things we've done to try to level that playing field for our smaller providers in the state is each of our defined project area intentionally will fall under $5 million to build out. The reason we did that was to keep our small providers out of Davis-Bacon, which they take on, the bigger companies, they do that every day in a lot of different states. Our smaller companies aren't set up to do that in many cases. So I think that's going to be really helpful to encouraging our smaller providers to jump in.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for all the work you're doing.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. Thank you.
Senator Brandt.
Thank you, Chairman Moser. On page 3 of your testimony, congratulations on receiving a equity capacity grant for $6.5 million. And you kind of allude to the fact this will be used for telehealth and technology skills. Can you expound on what this money will specifically be used for? And is this money available today, and who gets to apply for it?
No, Senator, great question. I'm glad you asked. The money is not available today. We think we'll open that grant round first part of next year. It will be open to anyone. We suspect it will likely be primarily nonprofits that have an interest in it. And yet the way the tranches are set up is we've got the $6.5 million. It's been committed to the state. We've passed that milestone. There's another $2.5 million and a following third round of a $2.5 million that has been appropriated to us. people have gotten a little bit skeptical about whether or not the next 2 tranches are coming, so we kind of don't commit to that. But the $6.5 million is in our state. It's pretty prescribed, the program itself, in the populations that we have to have impacts on. There's 8 defined populations that we have to impact on, things like seniors and that those kind of things, at rural communities. So I think we're going to see a lot of things on the digital navigator side, where we have individuals that are going to request funding to go into communities and teach those that otherwise haven't really been around a computer, how to be safe on a computer, how to feel comfortable on a computer. I think we are potentially going to see some things on the healthcare side in terms of remote access. I was recently in a roundtable in which a major hospital, major healthcare system talked about how they had to change their in-home visits during the pandemic, and they set up, or basically built on the fly, a telehealth type structure, to whereas now they can still get people out of the hospital into their homes where it's proven that they recover more quickly, but they don't have to have a nurse go to the home. They don't have to come into the home. And I think we'll see more programs like that suggested.
All right, thank you.
One question.
Senator DeKay.
I'm sorry, but one question. Off of that, would any of you, like your rural hospitals that are basically critical access hospitals, would they have any priority status where they're, say, referring to a larger hospital either in Omaha, Sioux City, Sioux Falls, or wherever?
There'll be an objective scoring, Senator. So when somebody submits their application for a grant, we'll score it objectively, just as we do the deployment grants. But I would suspect there's going to be a component of just the impact what's being suggested or proposed would have, and in a critical needs hospital, that says a lot right there. So there isn't any prioritization outside of the scoring of the application.
Okay, thank you. I'm done.
I've been patiently waiting for the, you're getting applause for being done. But it came from a skeptical person. Asked more questions than anybody else. So to me, the important question is not what's not done, what's wrong, what went right? How did things get better so much quicker than we anticipated? What did we learn from all of this? I'm sure it's all because of you, but other than that,
Chair, that didn't cross my mind at all, and it's not by any means. But I think there was a lot of funding directed to it, and I absolutely, and shared with them this morning, we have to express gratitude to our local providers, not only in the participating in other grant programs, but their own private investment. Our provider community, particularly in rural Nebraska, I mean, I'll give you an example. Cherry County, you're probably all expecting to be one of those counties with the highest number of unserved and underserved locations and the most expensive to get to. We have, and don't hold me to this number because our numbers aren't finalized yet, but we have 14 locations that are currently unserved or underserved in Cherry County. And that's due primarily to the acceptance of enhanced ACAM by a provider up there. So I have to give, what's gone right is our provider community has stepped up, and not only because it made business sense, but because it made sense for Nebraska. I truly believe that.
well, were there certain programs that you felt were particularly successful? Or was this just going to happen and we just happened to be lucky that it worked out the way it was?
I don't know that I would be subjective around how any one of the programs worked. I think they all work really well. The one that's had the most significant impact just in volume has been the enhanced ACAM from the federal government. We had 18 eligible companies in the state, and 13 of them accepted it. That was from the other states I've seen that comparison done to. That's a pretty high number for folks to step up and say, yeah, we'll take this on.
Going forward, is the problem going to continue to, well, I don't use too many negatives here. Is the internet access going to get better, or is it going to plateau, or is it going to get to the point where we have more unserved and underserved?
Senator Chair, I don't think it's going to get worse in terms of the unserved, underserved. It's only going to get better. I mean, when, in 2029 or 2030, when I hand in the final file back to NTIA to say it's done, we've theoretically gotten to everyone. So everybody does have access at that point. I think from a technology standpoint, the speeds and the capacity will continue to increase. I don't think there's going to be need for subsidy in doing that. I think the companies themselves, in order to just keep up with evolution, is going to have to do that. But I think maybe the question you're getting at, or one of the questions that I can't wait to put more time into, is how do we get folks to adopt the internet into their lives, their homes, their businesses.
Some people aren't all that motivated to have real high-speed internet.
Yeah. A lot of people, there's a lot of statistics out there around the percent of people that access the internet through their phone and who have an interest in accessing it through a home connection, and it's far higher on the phone.
Okay, great. Do you have another question, Senator Bosman?
Oh, no, I never have a question, do I? My concern is, as we talk about this, my concern is all the work that we're doing, all the work you're doing to put the high-speed connectivity out there, the fiber, whatever it is. We've worked, this committee and the body has worked to make sure we're funding upkeep and maintenance of the new stuff that's out there. And that, I think, is a concern that this committee needs to continue to look at as we move into the future. 25.3 needs to go away. And we've said that. And it needs to go away. And what we need to do is we need to make sure the work that you're doing, you folks are doing, that we're providing the funding as we move forward to make sure we maintain and upkeep, because we need that as vital.
Yeah.
We need to just get away from 25.3, and we need to do everything we can to move those providers, give them the ability to do that. But then we need to make sure we maintain that to the utmost we can. So the work that you're doing is critical for the state, but we also need to make sure we maintain it over long term. So thank you.
Yeah, Senator, I think there's an open docket at the Public Service Commission contemplating just that, but you're absolutely right. Our providers not only are they concerned about the initial investment, but there's an ongoing maintenance cost to each of these networks. And if it's high cost to get in there in the first place, it's going to be high cost to maintain it.
Mhm.
All right. Any other questions from the committee? Thank you very much. I appreciate your testimony, and I appreciate your enthusiasm and your hard work. And
Thank you.
keep it up.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Anybody else here that would like to testify today?
Do you have more questions?
All right. Seeing none, that will bring our hearing to an end. Thank you for attending.